This book. Man, this book was a huge part of my childhood. This was the one we could all quote, almost verbatim the dialogue. We'd act it out almost daily. We each had a role to play, this book being The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I know this story is a favorite to many people, especially after being made into movies and miniseries. BBC made a pretty faithful adaptation, and Disney didn't even screw this one up much. So I'll remind you, there will be spoilers in this rambling review, and we'll get started. Our story begins as the Pevensey kids arrive at Professor Kirk's big old house. This was during World War II, when Germans were bombing London and kids were being sent to the countryside for safety. Side note, a group of girls were sent in to C.S. Lewis' home during this time in real life. Anyway, after being introduced, the kids settle in. Now, this was a very wet summer, so instead of being outside as most people, adults especially, would have preferred, the kids began to explore the house. One of the upper floors, as you go through a long hallway, there was a room with nothing in it but a wardrobe. Lucy enjoys looking into wardrobes for some reason and decided to go in. Anyway, Lucy opens the wardrobe and starts making her way to the back. The coats give way to tree branches. The wooden floor turns to snow, and Lucy finds herself in a snowy forest facing a lamppost and a fawn. Mr. Tumnus, the fawn, is quite surprised to see her, but he invites her to have tea at his home. After eating, he begins playing music, which gives Lucy some wonderful dreams. Eventually, she shakes off the enchantment, and Tumnus reveals that he was supposed to take her to the White Witch, the ruler of Narnia. He can't go through with it, though, and instead he escorts Lucy back to the wardrobe and to the safety of home. As soon as she gets home, Lucy runs to her siblings, bursting with her story, only to find no time has passed in our world, and the others don't believe her. She holds to her story, though, despite Edmund's mean teasing. Peter and Susan aren't exactly sure how to deal with the situation. But the next wet day, they're trapped indoors, and the Pevensey kids play hide and seek. Lucy doesn't plan to hide in the wardrobe. She just wants to see if Narnia is still there. But Edmund follows her to make fun of her. And instead, he finds himself in that same snowy wood with no sign of his little sister. Just like Lucy, Edmund also meets someone in the wood. A woman on a white sled pulled by white reindeer. She's clothed all in white, with a face as white as snow and lips red as blood. This is the White Witch. She offers Edmund magic food and drinks, enchanting him and tricking him into telling her about his family. This enchantment leaves Edmund wanting more, and he promises to bring his siblings to her. As the witch drives off, Lucy returns. She's so excited Edmund was there too. He can tell the others that she was right and they can all share the secret. Edmund, who already is a bit of a nasty kid, is made even worse by the witch's magic. When Lucy finds their older brother and sister and tells her story, Edmund shoots her down. He claims it was just a game. Well, Lucy is distraught. Edmund is smug, and Peter and Susan are worried. Unsure what to do, the two oldest go to the professor for help. He begins walking them logically through the situation. Who is usually the more truthful, Edmund or Lucy? Does Lucy actually seem insane? Well, if she doesn't lie, and she's obviously not crazy, she must be telling the truth. With this new information, they make the choice to just avoid the topic and fill the days with outdoor activities, which works for a while. That is, until there's a tour of the house. And all four children find themselves trapped in the wardrobe room. They pile into the wardrobe, careful not to close the door, and suddenly, all four find themselves in Narnia. Susan is the most practical, bundling her siblings in warm coats, and they set off to see Mr. Tumnus, a vindicated Lucy in the lead. Edmund accidentally reveals that he was in Narnia before, and Peter gets very angry at his lies. Tensions between the boys are high, but they make it to Tumnus's cave in relative peace. Unfortunately, the cave is not what they expected. What had once been a cozy, comfortable, and homey place was tattered, trashed, and empty. A note was found on the floor. For his crime of treason, Tumnus had been arrested by the White Witch's secret police. The children, though frightened at this new turn of events, have to decide what to do. Do they return home like Susan suggests? Or do they try to rescue the fawn as Lucy pleads? They decide to try and save Tumnus when a bird catches their eye. The little robin waits for them to follow branch by branch, leading them straight to Mr. Beaver. Now, Edmund doesn't trust him, but Mr. Beaver brings them to his home above the dam, where Mrs. Beaver prepares a meal. And I just have to ask, why does book food always sound so good? I mean, the meal was just potatoes, bread and jam, and fresh-caught fish, but I really wanted some, and I don't usually go out of my way for fish. Anyway, Mr. Beaver has a lot to tell them. First of all, they can't go save Mr. Tumnus. Chances are he is in the White Witch's castle and has been turned to stone. The children can't fix that on their own, but there is someone who can. Aslan, the great lion, has returned to Narnia at last. He is the only one who can break the witch's spells. He's been away for a long time, and Narnia had been left to the witch. It was cursed to always be winter, but never Christmas. Aslan's return and the children's presence was set to fulfill the prophecies that had been told of the witch's end forever. But during this talk, Edmund slipped out to go to the witch's castle. It turns out, despite what he was about to do, Edmund is a very lucky boy. You see, he had not only forgotten his coat, yet avoided frostbite, it had also grown very dark, and the moon came out just in time to light the way through the darkest part of the trip. He arrives at the witch's castle and finds it full of statues. Statues of every creature imaginable, from lions and centaurs to giants and kangaroos. It's really creepy. But Edmund shakes himself and goes to find the witch. He first finds Fenris Ulf, captain of the secret police, a wolf. When Edmund reveals to the witch his family's location, that wolf in a second set out to kill them all. Edmund is made a prisoner and forced into the sled as the witch sets out to catch the others as they make their way to Aslan. If she can stop them, her hold on Narnia will last forever. Meanwhile, the other children and the beavers set out to find Aslan at the stone table. The snow begins to fall again, burying their tracks and hiding their scent from the wolves. They hike for hours before taking shelter in a special beaver's hiding place where... Hang on, I need to check something here. Then Mrs. Beaver handed round in the dark a little flask out of which everyone drank some. It made one cough and splutter a little and stung the throat, but it made you feel deliciously warm after you swallowed it, and everyone went straight to sleep. Did she give them whiskey? That's got to be some kind of alcohol. How did I never put this together before? Good old British stories from long ago. Next morning they meet Father Christmas, not Santa Claus. There is a difference. And they get their gifts. Peter receives a sword and a shield, Susan a bow and a horn, and Lucy a dagger and magic cordial. The girls' gifts are meant for defense. They're not meant to be in the coming battle. And then they go on their merry way. Both groups, the Beavers group and the Witches group, are surprised as spring begins to spring very quickly. And Edmund definitely has the worst of it. The witch is not happy that her winter is ending, and she takes her anger out both on Edmund and a group of creatures she meets. And she turns this whole group of talking animals that are celebrating Christmas to stone. It's never said if they're found again or if they remain there as stone until the end of time. The winter quickly meets its end. Peter, Susan, Lucy, and the Beavers arrive at the stone table safely and meet Aslan. Of course, they are beautifully awkward. You go first. No, you go first. But eventually they get over themselves and present themselves to the great lion. Aslan welcomes them and takes Peter to see Cair Paravel in the distance, the castle the kids would eventually rule from. Their talk is interrupted by Susan's horn. The girls had been attacked by the wolves. The girl was smart enough to climb a tree because those wolves got close fast. Peter attacks and barely wins his first real battle. Aslan sends swift creatures to follow the other wolf back to the witch to rescue Edmund. And this is done just in time. The witch was about to kill Edmund, but he was rescued and taken to Aslan. When he arrived, no one knows what Aslan said to him, but Edmund was forever changed. The witch was not. The next day, she marches up to Aslan, demanding Edmund's life. Aslan makes a deal. The witch leaves, and Aslan takes all his people to camp somewhere else. That night, Lucy and Susan can't sleep. They go to find Aslan and see him walking back sadly to the stone table. With his permission, they walk with him. When the three of them are almost to the table, he bids the girls to hide. The stone table is surrounded by terrible creatures, the witch's army. Aslan gives himself over to them. They bind him tightly, cruelly tight, muzzle him, shave his mane. And then, as he lay helpless on the table, the witch, laughing, kills him. Her army leaves the place, intent on taking out those loyal to Aslan. And the girls are left alone. They stand vigil through the night. Their only company is each other and the mice who chew through the ropes that tie Aslan. They say it's always darkest before dawn. Can you imagine how the girls felt? Alone in a strange world, their brothers set to lead an army against a witch who could easily turn them all to stone, and the only one who could have stood against her, dead. At dawn, there was a terrible sound. The stone table cracked. The girls, who had walked away a little just to keep warm, come rushing back. And there stood Aslan, alive. And the first thing they did was play for a few minutes. Then the girls climbed on his back, and off they set at a run for the witch's castle. Aslan turned all the stone creatures back to life, and the new army took off at a run to join the battle. They arrived just in time. Peter's army was struggling. So many had been turned to stone. But as the reinforcements rushed in, Aslan tackled the witch, and she was never seen again. Peter reveals that Edmund had more than made up for betraying them by destroying the witch's golden wand. He paid for it dearly and was terribly injured. Lucy remembered her cordial, which she used to restore not only Edmund, but all of their wounded allies. The restored creatures make their way to the castle of Cair Paravel, where the children are crowned kings and queens of Narnia, and Aslan leaves on other business. Like I said, this book was a huge part of my childhood, and I still love reading it periodically. 5 out of 5 beans. Trying to get through the story in a set amount of time, there's only so many details I can add, so you really can't get as good a feel for the characters as I would like. Some of the book is show, not tell, but I still love reading it through. Now the kids grow up in Narnia. They become great kings and queens, and one day they are told the white stag has been seen. A stag that, if caught, will grant a wish. While chasing it, they discover a strange thing. A tree made out of iron that was lighted on top. They found the lamppost and eventually stumbled back into the real world. They were children once again. No time had passed. They tell the professor of their adventures and why 4 coats might be missing from his wardrobe. To their surprise, he doesn't seem surprised. In fact, Professor Kirk seems positive they will eventually find their way into Narnia again. And he may be right. But that is a retelling for another day. In the meantime, here are the companion crafts for this story: the lion for Aslan and the beavers. Soon to be found on my Etsy shop. See you next time.